And welcome back. If you are here for the first time, my name is Shelley. I'm a realistic watercolorist in Ontario, Canada, and every Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, that's Toronto time, I do a live stream on watercolors. So thank you for joining me. And today we are going to be looking at working from a black and white. So what if you never knew what the actual colors should be? Could you still make a nice painting out of it? I think you can. So let's take a look. This is the reference that I am going to work from. This is actually a reference from unsplash.com. The link to this reference is listed underneath the description of the video, so you can go ahead and check that out. I'll be working on Arches 140-pound cold press paper. The size I'm going to be painting is 8 by 10. I'm going to be using an assortment of mine are mostly Da Vinci watercolors. The brand doesn't really matter. You just need to have a nice assortment of colors, and in particular, you need to have some primary colors, right? So some yellows, some reds, and some blues. Now I'm going to take a large brush here. And another tool that I'm going to be using, it will be a spray bottle. Okay, I'm going to be using a spray bottle today because I want the colors to sort of mix and blend. All right, so in my reference, I can see where the light is. Clearly it's on this side, and I can see where all the shadow is. This printed out a little bit dark on my printer, but I will go with it. So if you have a question for me as I'm going along, please ask it. And if you put it in capitals, I'll probably spot it more easily than if you don't. So, because I glance up at the chat as I'm going along, but I'm kind of multitasking with the painting and everything. So if you could put it in capitals, that makes it easier for me. Thank you. All right, so I'm going to ignore this for a moment. I'm just going to tint my paper. So essentially, I'm just going to water my paper, wet my paper, I should say, and I'll just go into my brush here and just get it wet. And I'm going to take some colors, and I'm not going to overthink this. I think I'm going to have some nice warm colors on the highlight areas and some cooler colors in my shadows, but I'm not thinking too strictly on that in those terms. When I put down my first layer, I don't want this one too dark. So I'm not going to go into anything like a Payne's gray or anything like that right away. I want this to be the lighter tones or the mid-tones. So I'm going to go into a yellow. Let's put some of that in the highlight areas. Maybe some over here too. And I'm not worrying about staying in lines. Now I will go, let's do something a little different than what I usually do. How about if I go with Rose d'Or? So Rose d'Or is a little bit like Scarlet Lake. It's a little bit more of an orange red as opposed to a pinkier red. And I'm just going to start putting some of this in. Now, when you go from a warm to a cool, it's best if you can transition it. So what I'm not talking about blending. I'm talking about going from an orange red, then going to a pinker red, maybe a purple even, and then we can go into blues and things like that, rather than jumping from an orange red straight into a blue. Here's the reason why I'm saying this. If I go with an orange red, orange and blue are complementary colors. When they mingle and mix together, they're not going to come out with a nice, a nice pleasing color. So what I will do is, when I'm transitioning over, I might go with something a little bit more pink, purple, something like this. I've just mixed in a little bit of, what did I put in there? Quinacridone violet I threw in there. Okay, so I'm throwing in some quinacridone violet, and that's going to help this transition into more of a cooler tone here. Now, what will I pick? I want to pick something in a blue. How about we go with a cerulean blue for shadows? Now that is bold. Okay, so I've basically covered all of the paper now. And I'm going to wipe off my tape here for a second so that I don't have drips that make their way back onto my painting and create things like blossoms and stuff like that. You know, the most fun part about working from a black and white is that you're not married to the colors that are actually in a color photo. So this is going to be, I think, a little bit more fun, a little bit more energetic kind of painting. I'm just going to put the colors down a little bit stronger. When you wet it, whenever you wet the paper, it's always going to turn out paler by the time you actually dry it. So. Great not having to stay inside the lines, I'll tell you that. That's kind of a bit of freedom there. Let's spatter as well, just to make it a little bit more fun. And now I'm going to grab some paper towels. I'm going to need these for sure because I'm going to tip this and I'm going to let everything run down. I was working flat there for a moment, but I am now going to tip this and just let all the colors flow downward and melt together. And just collect it all at the bottom. If you have like drips that come down like that, let it happen. It's a little bit of letting go. Carol says, do we need an intervention? I love that. Invasion of the body snatchers. Oh my goodness. Yeah, this is a little bit different, isn't it? Different than my usual. But that's, you know what? I think everybody needs to get into this play mode once in a while. It's a lot of fun. You'll be actually quite surprised at playing like this, and yet how kind of cool it ends up looking. All right, so I'm going to lay it down, and I want to add a little more color, I think. No, I'm okay. I'm okay. So I'm just going to keep tipping this, drinking up the excess. It's all collecting along the bottom here, and I'm just catching it with my paper towel. If I wanted this to run a little bit more, I can use my spray bottle here, and this is what helps it to flow a little bit more. So if you're putting down your colors and they look a little bit stuck, you know, like maybe when you wet your paper, maybe it started drying faster or something like that. You guys are funny. If you're not seeing the comments, the comments are, where's Shelley Pryor and what have you done to her? That's funny. Yeah, get outside your comfort zone once in a while. It's a lot of fun. All right, so now I have this. I want to get this dry, so I'm just going to take a moment and dry what I have so that I can start building up on these lighter tones. These are going to be the lightest tones in the painting. When you're working from a black and white, you don't have a guideline. I mean, other than your knowledge that this is obviously a blonde, white-skinned lady, and you could go with what your memory tells you. But this is more fun. All right, so I had that pretty wet, and I sprayed it and everything. So it's going to dry lighter. As you can see, it's drying much lighter. You can see, I don't know if you can see the paper bouncing here. That means it's still fairly wet in the middle. You know, when it's bubbled up like that, that means there's still some moisture underneath, because this was a stretched piece of paper. When it's dry, it'll be completely flat again. That's how I'll know that it's absolutely flat, or absolutely dry, I should say. We've got sunshine today. We had sunshine yesterday, which was very nice, and actually it was relatively mild. Still below freezing, but it was relatively mild compared to what we've had recently. But apparently we're coming back to another deep plunge in the temperature, so not looking forward to that, but it'll be good for painting. I can stay inside and paint my little heart out. Okay, any questions? None so far. Okay, just kind of getting the paper wet. All right, one thing that's really good about this stage is now I don't have white paper anymore. So that is a big bonus, is not having the white of the paper, because it helps you to build up your values a little bit more accurately. And if there was any light areas that I wanted to preserve, I could mask them first. I could mask them at this stage, as a matter of fact. Maybe I'll do that just to give you some idea. 1 second. I just needed to grab my box of goodies. So I've got my masking fluid. I'm going to use some soap, and I will need something to remove the masking fluid with, so I'm using a rubber cement pickup tool. So I'll set the rest of that behind me. The only other thing I'm going to need is a brush that I have designated just for masking. I don't use it for other stuff. Okay, so I've got a small one here, and I might mask off this hair that runs across the face, maybe a few little wisps and things like that, and maybe a highlight on her nose, maybe a little bit of a highlight up here, something like that. So I could mask off a couple of areas if I want to do that. Just areas I want to keep light without having to worry about dancing around them carefully with a brush or something like that. So I'm going to give this a stir because it's been sitting a while. Trying not to make bubbles in my masking fluid. That can be a bit problematic, because if you get bubbles, they get onto your paper. Then when they pop, it leaves a little pinhole and your paint will get through it. So first things first, I'm going to soap this brush. Just putting a little bit, I don't have to cake it thick or anything like that. I just need some soap on here before I go into my masking fluid, because it keeps the masking fluid from sticking to the bristles. Okay, so I want to come in along this hair that's coming down over her face. I don't know if I got that dry enough or not, but we'll see what happens. It actually is not good if you don't have this dry enough. It can cause problems removing the masking, so hopefully we don't have that. This feels a little damp here. I think just to be on the safe side, I'm just going to give this a little bit more of a dry. Hopefully that's not going to cause a problem there. But I want to dry this over here a little bit because I want to do a little bit of highlight here, just for some of the little wispy hairs and things like that. Staying away from the masking fluid that I just put down. The last thing I want to do is bake it onto the paper. This is a heat tool, so it gets pretty hot. Okay, there we go. So hopefully that'll do it. It's got to cool off a little bit before I actually jump in with masking fluid. So there's one little shine on her nose. I think I'm going to put that on there. Right here. Just a little highlight so I don't lose that. This area up here on her forehead, it's a bigger area. I think I might sort of soften that one in. So if I want a softened edged on a highlight, I don't want to be using masking fluid because it leaves a hard line. But what I would like to do is I'm going to switch over now to one of these tools. You've probably seen these. They're calligraphy tools. It's a dip pen, and this particular one has a very pointed nib. And I don't need to soap this because it will just wipe off of the metal. Don't have to worry about it clinging. And I'll just dip that into my masking fluid, and I'm going to put in a few little wispy hairs here at the edges. Don't need to do every hair, I just need to imply a few. And maybe a little bit down here as well. Just in that, there's just a little bit of sun peeking through there. So I could maybe emphasize a little bit of highlight there. And I'm not going to do any more than that. I think I'm just going to leave that, and we'll see what we end up with. So I can just wipe that masking fluid off this tool. It doesn't need anything special. I just have to be try to get it all off so it doesn't get wet and rusty. And I'm going to cover up my masking fluid. I've seen sometimes some people will sort of set their masking fluid aside without putting the lid on it, and it has such a short shelf life. I would really recommend putting the lid on it and keeping the lid on it as much as possible in order to preserve the life of your masking fluid. Okay. So that sure won't take very much time to dry. It will almost dry instantly when it's those very, very fine lines. But now I want to think about putting in some of the middle value shadows. Okay, so what I mean, it's just we've got highlights. We need some middle values. Then we'll go with darker values and just work our way to the end. So Jean Artist 417 says, would this approach work well with landscapes and florals as well? Of course, any subject, still life, whatever you like. Animals, portrait animals, that'd be great. In Cape Breton, we're digging out from 31 centimeters of snow. Yikes. Huh. What is my favorite masking fluid? I don't know that I have a favorite. My favorite one is the fresh one. Let's put it that way. The one that's still nice and fluid, not gummy. So this one's PBO, but I like Winsor Newton. I like, we have one here, I forget the name of it, Canadian brand. I've forgotten the name of it now, but I haven't really found any masking fluid that I dislike. I just dislike it when it gets old. So they're all pretty good. What tip did you pull off the nib? My nib is very sharp so that it looks like a great idea to protect. Oh, this, you're wondering what this is? It's just a piece of sticky tack, like gummy stuff, because I have stabbed myself with this brush, or with this nib quite a number of times because I keep it in a jar upright like this. I don't want to keep it on the nib, so I keep it upright, and in reaching for some of my brushes, I've stabbed myself a couple of times. So yeah, so that's what I do. Okay, so I'm going to now go to a little bit smaller brush. I couldn't tell you. This is a number 2, I believe, but that doesn't mean anything because that's a 2 and this is a 10, but they're almost exactly the same size. It depends on who makes the brush. But so I'll show you in relation to my pinky, that's how big it is. And I'm going to, for the most part, I'm going to keep like colors together. So I'm not going to put yellows on here. I'm not going to put blues on here. I'm going to try to keep things more or less where I've already got them. And I will be, once again, transitioning. If you think of a color wheel, which is like my palette here, I'm not going to go across the color wheel to a different color, to a purple, from a yellow to a purple or something like that right away. I'm going to ease my way across as I'm doing a shadow. So let's get some of these shadows in here. Now, this is kind of pinks or reds and purples. So I'm going to come in here and start bringing in some of these colors. I'm going to go right up to her hairline there. And I can rinse and blot my brush and soften an edge if I want to do that. I just want to get kind of a foundation of where the structure of the face is at this point. Okay, so it's pretty dark in there. A little bit of a lighter spot right here above her eye. It's not light. It's not as light like this side, but rinse and blot and just soften an edge here. I will not be looking for perfect smooth transitions, or if I get a hard line or a blossom somewhere, I'm going to embrace it here because I want this to be sort of, she's happy. She's obviously in on a joke that we're not exposed to, but she looks quite happy, and I want to keep that sort of fun, happy feel to this painting. So let's see, I'm going into some of my purples here. And I can see that there's some real darks. I guess I can't really hold this too close to the screen, but maybe I can do it this way. All right, so I'm going to come down right over that hair that I masked off. So I'm kind of ignoring that hair. If I want to soften an edge, it's a rinse and blot and soften before it dries, right? But I'm not looking for perfection at this point. This is all pretty dark in here, other than her teeth. So I will kind of work around her teeth. I might darken these up a little bit later, but All right, I'm getting down closer to the blues. I'm going to throw some blue in here. Looks like she's got a mustache right now. But by the time we're done, she'll look fine, I think. Soften any edges you need softened. It's looking pretty patchy and so on right now, and this is without a doubt one of the ugly stages of the painting. All right, so I want to go, I'm going to stay in the family of yellows here, but I want to put some shadow in there. Well, that means I'm going to have to take my yellow and dull it a little bit. So I'm going to take some of this. My analogous color here, the one kind of coming around the color wheel. I'm coming into the reds. So I'm going to grab some of that. And this shadow on her, from her hair, I will come down here and just bring that down. And now this starts to go into her cheek. Let's soften a couple of edges here. Because nothing says edge like a hard line. So if you want to make something look like it's round or got a curve of some kind, you will need to soften that edge. And since her cheek isn't a corner, now I'm gonna go into some of the red, the rose d'or that I was using, and I'll put some of that in here because that's the transitional color. And then I'm back to that purple. So if you have your colors in a color wheel format on your palette, it shouldn't be too difficult to work out which are analogous colors and so on, because I've got a hair in the paint here. Because they're basically in a progression. You just don't go across. Okay, so I can go from yellow to red to purple, then I can go to blue. If I go from yellow to blue this way, if I go kind of counterclockwise, I know I'm going to create green, which actually wouldn't be that traumatic. Would be quite all right. But I will try to keep this as transitionally pleasing as possible. So softening this edge. Now I'm going to come back in. I'm going to revisit a lot of this as I go along, but the main thing right here is to start seeing the form emerging. Obviously, we don't need to worry about the exact color because we don't know what the color is. This particular image that was on Unsplash actually was originally in black and white. So it makes it impossible for me to know what the real colors actually were. All right, so you see how I'm building up a little bit? Now I've made her nose really stand out and her mouth looks ridiculous. So we need to come in and get some of these darker colors in here where her gum line is. Okay, so you should begin to see the emerging of shape. I'm coming over to the yellow, so I'm switching Switching again to the brighter tones, or not the brighter tones, but the more red, which is closer to yellow than purple is. Purple's the complement. Now I've kind of ignored her hair so far. Let's get a little bit of her hair done, a little bit of the shading on her neck and under her ear. We need to develop some of that. Bit of undissolved paint there. This technique does allow for a much looser feeling. It will be very forgiving in terms of, if you get a blossom or something like that. In fact, blossoms in something like this just kind of add an energy and can be quite beautiful in the finished painting. So let's take, I'm going to take that quinacridone violet again. It is a little pink in here, so I think I can get away with this. And I'm going to go with some real strong color here because it's quite dark. So that little pocket under her ear is there. I'm inching over more and more here. Okay, so I need to get some of this dark down in here as well. And this starts to get into more of the purples and blues and that sort of thing. A bit of shadow from her hair. Now there's a bright highlight. You know, as the sun is coming across, her chin is making a shadow right here, but the sun is peeking through here. And then her shoulder, I guess, is making this other shadow. So there's this little margin of light right through here. If you're looking for a reference that you want to use for this technique, or pretty much any portrait, I really do think that it's awesome if you pick one that has lots of light, easy to see light and dark. Now, you may have missed what I just did there, but what I did was I spread out my bristles so that they are all fanned out like that. And I did a little flick to give the impression of that highlight on the hair. I don't want to have a line that goes straight across. No brush marks in this direction. But I really want to get the side of her face established here. I want to make sure I have a nice, well-established line there. And I might throw a little purple into that. Once I get a whole area that's like a little too flat, like one color, and gets a little boring looking, that's when I would love to throw in some other color. Now this one's wetter. I think it's going to blossom, and I'm going to embrace the blossom if it happens. Okay, so over here, we're starting to get a little bit of a middle value. It's not as dark as the left side, but It's a middle value with little bits of highlight on it. So I'm following kind of the contour of her hair. I want to get some of that hair built in here. I do have some masking fluid on some of these hairs to help, but I still want to try to follow that flow of her hair. I'm going to go a little bit more red now with the rose door. Not looking for perfectly carefully done brush strokes here. I'm really just trying to get the essence and the joy on, like the joy on her face is what I'm trying to bring through in my color choices, in the way I'm applying the color. So Karen says, I've wanted to try this technique with portraiture, but have been too timid. This helps. Well, good. If you start with a black and white photo like I did, and you simply do not know the colors, then you can create whatever you want. And this will show you that the most important thing isn't the color, like many of us think. The most important thing happens to be the value, so how light or dark things are. I've kind of ignored her eyebrows so far. I'm going to come in here and just hint where they are. I don't want to go too dark right off the bat. And I don't want to lose my lines for her eyelashes and stuff either, like where her eyes are. This is a good one because I don't have to get into the detail of eyes, glasses. We do have teeth involved here, but I'm still using this fairly large brush. Not too concerned with, downsizing to get perfect lines. I'm not really worried about that. And I am kind of jumping around. It's letting some areas dry, but I'm also trying to keep the balance of light and dark well established here. And there's a darker bit right on the end of her nose. I think I want to get that in there too, putting a little bit of blue into it. Well, now I've done it. I put that blue in there, and it's like it stands out. Look how prominent that suddenly became because I put it on an area that was sort of opposite. So I'm going to soften the lines here, and I will sort of mix that in with a bit of purple and build up other areas around that will be fairly similar. This crease in her cheek, I want to keep that well established. So while you might think that getting the right color, the exact color, is the most important thing, this will show you that it's not, and you can actually get a painting with more life and energy than if you did follow like a printout, especially if you're printing out your photo to work from on regular copy paper like this. Your colors are going to be so much more lifeless than what you'll end up with in your painting if you go this route, right? So So I've got a nice blossom going on here. Not worried. I think I'm going to, let's go over to some of the red here. I want to get this part of her shoulder a little darker. But not right to the edge, because you can see we need some dark here, and the light's hitting it most right here, so that needs to be a lot lighter. So I'm just going to take my blotted brush and soften that edge. All right, so I think over here on this side, I want to go with that dulled down yellow again on my palette. You can see I just took this to the next color and mixed it in here. When you're doing this kind of a technique, make sure you have a brush that holds lots and lots of paint. You do need to fill it for it to work well. Now if I transition that background here, I might be able to toss in a bit of blue there. So I'm going to bring some more red up here. Right, so I'm going yellow to red to purple. And then finally I can bring in a bit of blue here. Balance off what's on the other side. Now that is mixing in a little bit with that red, so it's not as pretty as it would be, but it is background, so I'm not gonna lose sleep over that. And if you get the notion, just splatter it once in a while. It's just fun. If it's too much, just blot it off, calm it down kind of thing. But those little splatters can add a surprising energy to your painting. You know, it's like somebody tossing confetti. Why do we toss confetti? Because we associate that with party, joy, that sort of thing. So a splatter in something like this can just make it that much more fun. Am I using a mop, quill, or round brush? I believe this one's basically referred to as a mop, but it is a mop that comes to a reasonable point. So you might call this a round as well, but it is a mop in the fact that it holds a lot, and the belly is fat in the middle and then tapers to a point. So that's the type of brush it is. It actually doesn't have a description on the label. This is a bigger one. It just says paintbrush. So that's all it is. But this would be considered a quill or a mop, or sorry, not a quill, but a mop or a round, I believe. All right, so I have a few more darks that I want to add in here. And yeah, up here in her hairline, that's where we need to really get some really strong darks in there, up in here. I don't want to make the whole left side of her face blue, so I'm going to transition this one over into a purple. start moving over into my red. And even that yellowish color. So then we're kind of coming full circle, but again, here we're coming back to the to this golden color here that we had before. Soften if you have an edge that sort of continues. You don't want to have it stop abruptly. This one here is stopping too abruptly, so I'm going to bring this together. And I mix a little blue into it. Let's bring a little bit more of a deeper blue in here. Don't want to get on the cheek there. I'm going to bring some of this purple down a little bit further. And you can see that when I mix the purple with the blue, the value of the color gets a lot darker. That and the fact that it is, it's also just layering up color. So it gets stronger as we layer up. Okay, just going to wipe off that. I went over my line there just a bit. I'm not looking for too much precision, but I don't want to eat into her cheek there. And down here at the bottom, it gets pretty dark there too. So I'm going with a little bit stronger color, mix of the blues and the purples. Let's transition over into some of the purple here. So the thing that's really going to make this successful is having the correct balance of lights and darks. So I keep building up the darks to get where I want to be. So as much as I'm a realistic artist, I do enjoy this kind of thing as well. I just don't do it very often. I love the energy in it. I think that this really does add some. And the expression on her face, of course, is a big help here too. So, and speaking of her face, we definitely need to come back in and build that up more. Every time this dries, it lightens up again. That's the nature of watercolor. So we come and we revisit areas, try to get them even darker. I can put a blue on a purple. I wouldn't put a blue on that orange red, but I can put it here on top of the purple. And I will put some more purple into it because that's going to make it extra dark. So when I'm referring to purple, it's my quinacridone violet. I think if I painted this in a tight, controlled way, I think some of the fun would come out of it. Some of the fun feeling, I guess, would be lost in translation. You want it to look carefree, right? All right, so I'm going to work on her face a little bit, and it's just going to be a little easier for me if I turn this sideways, so I hope that doesn't mess you up too much. Renee says, is there a name to identify what kind of painting as it is not realistic painting? impressionistic, I suppose. This is more impressionistic. But I definitely need to darken up some of the shading on her lips and her mouth and all of that. So I'm going to slide this over, turn it sideways. Just it's a little less awkward for me. Let's turn my reference sideways as well. So I'm painting shapes and values. I'm not painting a mouth. And if you know what I mean, I'm trying not to think of this as a mouth. I'm trying to think of this as, okay, where's that shape? How dark is it? And that's just about it in terms of calculating what I'm doing here. So the reason I wanted to work this way is, and I am putting my hand in wet paint, so I might stop here in a minute and dry what I've got. But I'm just following the underline of her teeth. One thing I'm not doing is I'm not making lines between her teeth. So if you're afraid of teeth, all you need is the outline where the teeth are in the mouth. And then you need the outline of the gum. You can get away with a lot of other things on there, but so I'm going to go kind of purple here. There's a little bit of a light spot right there, so I'm going to avoid that. I might just blot my brush and just soften the edges of that so we see a little shine on her lip. And maybe just to differentiate between her gums and her upper lip, I will just make her gums a little bit more reddish, just to differentiate that line. They're blending together because the upper lip is actually a little wet, but I think it's going to work out fine. Now her teeth are actually looking a little bit light at this point, but the gist of her mouth is fine. And so this is a little bit of, you darken here, you darken there, and I see another place I've got to darken. So you'll be revisiting some of these areas. Just remember that you are painting like colors over the area that you're working. So I want to go over here. It's in a purplish neighborhood. And I'm going to go stronger here. I'm looking for that little curve. It looks like a little wave on her cheek. And she's got a little dimple going down here, which kind of extends down to her chin. And a little bit of shadow under her lip as well. Now I need to soften up some lines, so I'm going to start here on her cheek. The brightest part of her cheek seems to be here, at least the left part of her cheek. But she has this little hair that comes down is leaving just a slight shadow there on her cheek. So I want to incorporate that. Maybe a little softer. I'll soften that line a little bit. Come in with a little bit more blue in there. That darkens it up. And this inside corner here actually gets pretty dark. So I want to get a little darker there. And she's got, because she's laughing so hard, she's got her nose is kind of scrunched up here and it's got these little creases. So I just need to give the idea of a couple of little lines there to emphasize that crease, to make her look happy. But I do love the energy of the color and the life that it's bringing to this portrait. On the other side, I need to start going back to the golds because we are in the highlight area of her face. So you might be really tempted to just make both sides the same, like take that purple and bring it over into the other side. But that would actually feel wrong on these other tones here, these other colors. Put a little too much on there, so just wipe it off. Might want to soften this line. The one great thing about this technique as well is that I'm not using any grays in the shadows. The shadows are feeling a lot more energetic because they actually have color. Just a couple of little shadows there from her lashes. I'm going to rinse my brush as her brow, that was the word I was looking for, comes over into the sun, it will obviously lighten up. So we still want it to show, so it has to be a little bit darker than her skin tone, but I didn't want that especially dark. So I'm bringing some more of this shadow. You'll see that the more I build up shadow, the more dimension her face has. Like it feels like it is not flat. A little bit more red I'm going to put on her neck because I've got nothing separating her neck from her face other than a pencil line. So I was going along that pencil line, just not putting a dark value in there, just a little bit. So we've transitioned from this dark over into the light where the sun is hitting her neck. And trying to make some of this even darker, you know, shadow building. And once again, I want to take and spread out my bristles when I'm doing hair, so you can see on my palette how I'm kind of doing that. Kind of doing the twist, right? A natural hairbrush will keep that shape a little better than a synthetic hair, but you can do it with the synthetic hair as well. So I'm bringing down a few flicks here with some strokes. I want to come across. She's got some hair crisscrossing here, so I'm going to bring some of that down here. Letting go is a little tricky. It's so hard to get rid of the perfectionist tendencies that I know many of you have. If you think that you have perfectionist tendencies, let me know in the chat. I bet I'm not the only one. So this for me is a bit of a challenge too, not because it's difficult for me to do, but more because it my impulses to want to clean up lines and all of that sort of thing. Yeah, I don't know that there's a name for this particular style. And there might be a name for it. I just don't know what it is. So now to really have her face stand out, I'm going to get some extra darks over here. I think this side really needs the strongest dark. And you can see that as I add darks, it comes more and more and more alive. I see so many great paintings in the works, but the artist is so nervous about wrecking it. We've all been there, right? You're nervous about wrecking it, so you stop before it gets wonderful. I missed a bit there, so I'm just going to blend it in, soften that edge. That's getting good and strong now. A little purple here before we get back into the reds. The reds I think are okay there. I don't think I need to make those any darker. But I do think in around her eyes here, this part here does need more darkening. She's really scrunching up her face because she's laughing so hard. And we do need to have some of these darks better established. And that's the scary part, right? Keep adding darks right in the middle of her face kind of thing. Can be kind of a scary thing. But you know what? I suggest to you, here's a proposal. Take a piece of paper, basically call it garbage right from the very beginning. This is something you're going to throw in the garbage. You're not planning to keep it. You're not planning to frame it. You're not planning to give it away or anything like that. And just go for it. Just completely let go of all your preconceived ideas and see where you can take it. I think you could surprise yourself. I'm going to take a little bit of my red, I think, and just come along the edge of this nose, just to kind of cross-pollinate a little bit, just where the dark comes into the light. You will usually see just a little bit of hot color or brighter color just before something, or just as something comes out of a shadow. So right here it might be a little bit brighter. This ends up almost giving the same look as a pour. If you're not familiar with what a pour is, it is poured watercolors is when you'll mix up your watercolors in like little cups like this perhaps, and you'll mask off all your highlights and you will pour color on, like really wet color. You'll pour it on, let it mingle on the paper. Then you dry it, and then you put another layer of masking on for the next lightest color. And you pour again, and you just progress to the darks. And before you know it, you've got most, like if this were a pour, most of her face would be covered in masking fluid at this point, and her hair and her shoulder, all of that would be covered in masking fluid. There's a Canadian artist by the name of Leslie Lambert. You can look her up on YouTube. She's got some videos there, and she does some fabulous pour techniques. And it's something that's a little difficult for me to do in a live stream because of the amount of dry time and that sort of thing. So it makes it a little challenging for me to do it as a live stream. Could I show us some of the other projects you've done with this technique at the end of this live? Oh, you know what? I think that they are upstairs in my storage bedroom, if you will, and it would take me some time to dig that out, and I don't think you'd want to wait, but I'll try and pull them out maybe for next week if I think of it. Michael's saying, oh, no, that was Michael asking that. Okay, so all right. Now, I'm intentionally keeping this zoomed out for a minute so that you can get the feeling of the overall picture. And I think that that's an important way to look at your painting, because if you are looking at your painting up close, like the way I'm sitting right now, I'm right in front of it. And if I were to step back, this would look a lot better than what it looks like up front, up close. I feel like spattering again. Just for some energy. I've got blossoms going on, and it just adds to the whole party, all right? So I think I could fiddle and fuss with this, but I think that would be counterintuitive to what I want to achieve, or counterproductive to what I want to achieve. So I'm just going to put a little dark on here. I'm going to dry it, remove some masking, and show you the reveal. This I'm just going to blend in, just to make that a little darker there. Okay, so now it's time to dry. Recently I've had a number of people say to me that they cannot find the translation. Let me tell you the process of doing a live stream. When you do a live stream, then YouTube takes that live stream and they process it. And basically they run it through filters to make sure that there's nothing offensive in it or copyright infringing, and they will check it out. And so sometimes this takes up to a day. So you may not see the translation in your language until after 24 hours. So if you're looking for it during the live, that's very difficult. And I know that I'm saying this during a live, but somebody who watches this replay might hear me say that, and you'll understand. So it has a feature now on YouTube where you can translate to your language. You click on the closed caption, and then you go to settings, and then I believe it's something like more translations or something like that. Somebody left me a message that the one that they were watching, the video of mine, was in Chinese. And it's most likely that they inadvertently hit on the Chinese. I did go back and check my videos. None of them are in Chinese. I haven't been hacked. So it's probably just a setting that was inadvertently hit. I think I will do one more thing. I'm going to darken up her brow a little bit more. But that's getting pretty hot now, so I think I better not press my luck. I'm really hoping this will come off since I put it on something that wasn't 100% dry. Let me emphasize, I do not recommend putting masking fluid on anything except for totally dry paper. So, and one other thing I could do, just last minute touch up, would be, I think I would like to tone down her teeth slightly. It's a little bit in the purples. So you see I used quite a limited palette here. They're just leaving a little bit, maybe a couple of highlights on there. And her brow I would like to darken, so I'm just going to bring this up here and get her brow darker. I just switched to a smaller synthetic brush just for some of these little bits here. Okay, so that feels a little bit more cohesive. And one last touch that I will do is give her some nostrils, which are basically little just slivers here. Not very noticeable, but they are there. Okay, so now time for the reveal. I'm going to take off my masking fluid. Thankfully it's coming off. Now what you might find when you put masking fluid on, even if you put it over top of paper, if it comes out too light, you'll just have to go back in and tone it down a little bit, just like I did with the teeth. I'm going to lift out a few hairs here. If they stand out too much, I can always tone them down. And the little wispy hairs off to the side. These are the ones that I did with the dip pen. And the highlight on her nose. I think that's it. So I think we have her done. Let me take off the tape. We might as well just do a complete reveal thing here. So to get away from the actual colors can be so freeing and give you such a energetic, fun result. There we go. Okay, so there's our energetic painting. Hope you liked that style. That's a little bit different than my usual, but I was doing a couple of different styles in the last couple of weeks on portraits, and I thought this one might be a fun one. For those of you that fuss a lot about perfection and getting the color matched perfectly, and one of the common questions I get all the time is, what is my go-to skin tone color? Well, the truth is that it's many, many, many colors, and even if I'm trying to do something realistic, it's many colors. So I will change my color all throughout the whole face, much as I did here. Warmer colors in the light, cooler colors in the shadow, perhaps. Or sometimes it can be reversed. If you have reflected light, you might have some yellows on this side. If there was something bouncing the light back over here, you might have a completely different set of values there. But clearly, it's not the color that makes the painting, right? It's the values. So it makes kind of a fun, energetic painting, and I hope you enjoyed that one. So let me just come back here and say thank you so much for joining me. I hope you'll see me again next week. What am I going to do? I don't know yet. But if you have some ideas of what you'd like to see, by all means, put them in the chat, and the popular ones will most likely get to be a demonstration coming up. So see you next Wednesday. Hope you have a wonderful week. Stay warm, and we'll see you next time. Bye. I'm still on screen? I am. Okay then. Bye.